Don't you just wish that you could go back to a simpler time? A time when you didn't have to worry about gas prices, bills, and, survival? A childhood of bliss, innocence, and a naive sense to the greater world around you. One where instead of dreading the outside world, the only real fears we had were those of ghost stories we told each other, whether it was around a campfire or on a message board. Throughout the late 2000s and early 2010s, writing a creepypasta was akin to sitting around a campfire and telling ghouls and ghost stories with your friends, always trying to one-up each other in terms of scares. They quickly became a fun pastime for both writers and readers alike, and eventually began to seep outside of their forums and message boards into the larger world of media, for better and for worse. But there was also another trend that took the world by storm during this time period. Something that would permeate an entire generation of storytelling the world over. The concept of a cinematic universe. Heroic team-ups, colossal and devastating battles, action-packed adventures, and cheesy, sometimes even downright awful, stories all coming together under one umbrella to tell separate chapters of an overarching narrative. This idea has taken over a ton of media content in the past decade or so, spanning from movies to television shows to even right here on YouTube with channels like Everyman Hybrid and Tribe 12. So what happens when you take the old storytelling tropes of creepypasta from years gone by and combine them with the new ones of the modern age? Well, you get our subject for tonight. The Macabre Experiment. The Macabre Experiment was a web series created by Stuffy here on YouTube, consisting of 6 videos as of the time of writing. The playlist itself has over 192,000 views, so chances are if you're watching this video, then you have already got an idea of what we're in for tonight. But for those of you who are unfamiliar, I'll leave the playlist down below so that you can check out the series for yourself before we dive down this rabbit hole. Don't worry, we'll wait for you. Welcome back. I hope you had just as much fun with this series as I did. Now, if we're all fully prepared, let's jump right into it. Our story begins with an entry listed as Failed Experiment 22, Smile.jpg. We hear a man interviewing somebody named Wyatt Miller about a camping trip he had with some of his friends.
And when did all of this start? I invited my friends to this campground. I thought it would be a fun time for all of us, to go camping. Maybe watch the stars and stuff like that. My friends and we haven't exactly been getting along recently. There's things I wish I could take back. Things that maybe they wish they could take back. I thought finally hanging out again could help, but one of my friends, Max, he couldn't make it, or so he said. Interesting. I know he didn't want to come. It's okay. Yeah. We saw a leash on the ground and dried up blood in the dirt. Okay, I saw it. I didn't tell the others. I didn't want them to freak out and want to leave. We were finally together again, So I just forgot about it, I guess. Just moved along.
Wyatt goes on to talk about how after he saw the leash and failed to inform his friends of his findings, he began to hear barking off in the distance. But when he asked his friends about the noise, they say that they don't hear a thing. After a single night's worth of camping, the group heads home, and Wyatt decides to kill some time on his computer.
I got a message. It was from an anonymous user. They sent me a link. I was an idiot for this, but I clicked on it, and it led me to an image. A haunting, terrible image. It was a dog, but not just any dog. He was smiling. The dog had human teeth in its mouth. I immediately thought of the leash and the blood,
Alright, before we continue, I just gotta make a quick PSA to those new people on the internet. Never open a link from someone that you don't know. I know it's kind of Internet 101 at this point, but I personally know people who have had their personal data stolen and been given viruses for opening these sorts of things. Best to just delete it and move on. Anyways, those of you who were around for the good old days of creepypastas probably know exactly where this is going based on the failed experiment file name. But for the rest of you, Smile Dog was a creepypasta about a chain email, God remember chain emails, Jesus, revolving around sharing this specific image around to friends and family, or else it would end up killing you if you failed to comply. You know, typical creepypasta stuff. It seems that Wyatt, while being freaked out, did indeed share the image to the same group of friends that he had gone camping with. But his friends must have refused to spread the image or thought it was a joke or something, and it resulted in their death. The interviewer tells Wyatt that he can call it a day for now, and to get some rest. Afterwards, the video cuts to what is presumably Wyatt's computer screen from the night that he received the Smile Dog photo. Soon after, we're shown an old Warner Brothers cartoon short called Doggone Tired, where we see a dog trying to get some sleep as things begin to go awry at his home. As the dog finally begins to get some rest, a shadowy-looking figure with shrunken eyes and a wide, toothy smile begins to loom over him. After being jump-scared by this entity, we're brought to a serene, peaceful meadow as a voice begins to speak.
I was having the most wonderful dream. I finally felt free. I got to be away from the people I hate. In my dream there is no pain. Everything is peaceful. Everything is warm. I can't help but smile.
It seems that whoever Wyatt was talking to got a bit too curious about Smile Dog, and sealed his fate by looking at the photo. There is an unlisted video suggested to us at the end of this episode, but it seems to merely be a video version of the original Smile Dog image, with the title of your choice being a reference to whether or not you would decide to spread the chain email. Our next video, Failed Experiment 16, The Mouse, immediately introduces us to a group known as the FE Protective Agency, which gives us a brief warning about the specific case, and introduces us to Diana Cooper, who we then hear on the phone with her partner.
I tried speaking to him. He really just doesn't listen to anything anymore. All he wants to do is sit around and gone instead of actually getting his foot done. We need him to appear for the show. It's on Sunday. There isn't a lot of time left. We have a deadline. Once this is over, I can get back home with you, honey. I promise. You can do whatever you want, okay? I love you.
Diana seems to be upset due to an issue she's having with a coworker not completing their work by the required deadline, and states that after their project is finished on Sunday, they can get away to wherever her partner would like to go. As Diana hangs up the phone, an old-styled Mickey Mouse cartoon begins playing. Mickey is forced inside of a haunted house and is being scared over and over again by bats, spiders, and moving objects. While trying to make a run for it, the video begins to flicker, and we see the same distorted smile looming over where Mickey stands. After escaping the room, Mickey is confronted by a cloaked figure as the distorted face reveals itself. We hear a confrontation between Diana and Curtis, the same coworker that Diana was ranting about at the beginning of the video. Curtis tells Diana that he has everything under control and to leave immediately. It's clear to me that Curtis is the one who's supposed to be animating the cartoon that we're currently watching, and seems to be in the middle of dealing with the shadowed figure. And he's trying to get Diana to leave before she too is preyed upon. But it's too late. We get a note that reads, "I know you're excited for the show to premiere, sweetie. I'll be home right after and you can tell me how it was. I love you." Before a voice begins saying, over and over again, as the Mickey Mouse face distorts into a sinister grin before showing us a human skull surrounded by darkness. We're brought back to the Mickey Mouse cartoon, where we can see Mickey walking into the darkness before stumbling across a gun on the ground. He picks it up and raises it to his head and proceeds to... We then hear once more from the FE Protective Agency, and we hear a phone call from a Rowan Withereds in regards to his father, Curtis. We're shown the body of Curtis lying face up on the floor, with what seems to be a gun in his hand. Curtis has taken his own life, just like the mouse of his cartoon. Mickey's eyes peer out from the darkness, as the same eyes from the shadow figure roll forward from inside of them. Diana has met the same fate as Curtis. After seeing some images of bootleg Mickey and Minnie costumes, which are actually the scariest thing in this entire series, just looking at these things makes me want to vomit. A letter fades on the screen, directed to Diana. "Guess what, Diana? I got the film we needed. Took some work. It's rare, you know. Bought it off some shady company. They recreated the cartoon on their own, they said. Pretty impressive, honestly. It looks pretty legit to me. I'm sure the boss won't notice. Just don't let him know about where I got it, alright? He's gonna be so glad we've managed to find this. Silas." As the video glitches to a close, 2 sections of code are found in the final few frames. While I can read the last one just fine, the first half blends right into the note, making it incredibly difficult to read. If any one of you is able to decipher it, please let me know down below, as I've yet to see anybody talk about this. Although, if it's like the previous episode, it very well may be a part of a link to an unlisted video. The next episode, Microbes, seems to be found footage captured by an employee of the FE Protective Agency, as they record their experience within a facility known as Macabre Labs.
Just pay attention to the screen. This is a vital process for your survival. Thank you for collaborating. Mistakes in the lab in the past. Our fellow organization once known as Macabre Labs, named after Ethan Macabre, had attempted human experiments for their own benefit. Many of those experiments have gone horribly wrong, causing most people to die. Others nearly spent out in the front, and most have lost all memories since. Those experiments caused microbes to run released into the air, which spread out. Those microbes could travel for more than just living mass, but can allow with the jets and cooking with alter technology and look simpler than in television novel. Ethan was on the clock. He had went missing after the source of the microbes was discovered. Macabre Labs was shut down. The human-born technology that had been infected by microbes are what we call Macabres. They are the failed experiments.
At last, we can finally connect some of the dots being laid out for us. Ethan Macabre was a scientist who performed several illegal human experimentations within his company, Macabre Labs, which is a name that totally won't raise any suspicion whatsoever. And while doing so, released microbes into the air that are capable of corrupting both human mind and technology alike. Even being able to just make viewing something on your screen lethal. Which makes a lot of sense in regards to Smile Dog and Side Mouse. We learn that Ethan disappeared into thin air, and that these failed experiments, known as Macabres, can be extremely manipulative and aggressive. That's when our cameraman turns around, and we see a face shrouded in darkness, before he begins to run for his life throughout this maze-like structure. The camera glitches, and within it we can see the word breathe, repeated a number of times before our cameraman falls prey to a macabre. One none other than the most notorious serial killer in Creepypasta history, Jeffrey Woods, aka Jeff the Killer. While I've really enjoyed all of the episodes up until this point, this one might just be my favorite so far. It gives us a cohesive backstory, an explanation as to why all of this is happening, and even made me jump on first watch through. There's some really great stuff in here, and I'm excited to see it expanded upon in future entries. With that, we move on to our next video. Failed Experiment number 8, Ben. If you don't know the story of Ben Drowned, the story is about a user who wanted to purchase a copy of Majora's Mask for the N64, but instead of shelling out a ton of money for a second-hand copy, he purchases a used one from a yard sale, which seems to be haunted by the spirit of the previous owner, an 8-year-old boy named Ben, who had drowned in the nearby lake. Back to our analysis, we can hear a man named Oliver speaking on his experience about buying the haunted cartridge of Majora's Mask, as gameplay of his experience comes on screen. When the player clicks on the grave, a small boy's image appears on screen, pleading for our help. The player edges closer and closer to the grave and glitches through the ground, falling into the tomb. As the player continues down the hallway, they're confronted by Ben and the mask seller from the original story, as a third entity warps into screen. And although we don't get to see exactly who it is, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's the shadowy figure we've been seeing throughout this series. The game cuts again, and this time, text, presumably from Ben, comes on the screen. Father, why would you do it? Before the game returns to the opening N64 loading screen. As the game reboots, we can see a new save file is listed, labeled as Your Turn. As soon as the player selects the file, the shadow figure appears. Ben tells us that he's been stuck in this husk of his former self, and wishes nothing more than to be set free and rest peacefully away from him. At the very end, another unlisted video is offered to us. This time, we see somebody as walking along a rocky shoreline as backward audio plays. Reversing the audio, we get this.
I took him to the lab one day, wanted him to check out some of the serum dyes I made. What? Of course I didn't tell him. I just said they were for animal testing. He still didn't like the idea of it. I miss him. I didn't mean to. He attacked me. He was acting odd, trying to kill me. I don't understand. Why? Why would you do that to me?
Part of the audio is tough to make out, but it seems that this is Ben's father talking about taking his son out for a ride one day, presumably on a boat, because, Ben drowned, and something about testing. Ben seemed to get aggressively angry at his father, even going so far as to attempt to murder him. It sounds like Ben may have been infected with the microbes, and his father drowned his son in self-defense, probably by pushing him off the edge of the boat. Another family torn apart by Ethan Macabre's recklessness. Our next episode focuses on failed experiment number 5, the killer, and once again we are given information from the FE Protective Agency.
Welcome back. It's been a while. Please note that whatever you see during this investigation must remain private and cannot be shared to the public. You've been warned. The following is a phone call from Rowan Withers that was recorded for our investigation.
We then hear Rowan on the phone with someone. although something seems off as soon as the voice tells Rowan that it's outside. It seems that whoever is talking to Rowan on the phone isn't who he thinks it is. As Rowan tried to get a response, it seems as though the shadow figure, now taking on a more monstrous form, reveals itself to Rowan, and causes him to arm himself and make his way to the yard. Rowan has executed the man on the phone, and it turns out that it was his friend the entire time. Was the shadow figure making him hallucinate? It certainly wouldn't be the first time it's done something like that. As the screen fades away, we're shown a Macabre lab attendance check, where one after another, Macabres are being listed as in containment, some of which might be pretty recognizable to a lot of the viewers who would peruse through Creepypasta forums and no sleep at 3 a.m.
Melissa Stockholm, joyless. Current state, in containment. Dakota Norman, the abomination. Current state, in containment. Jack Nichols, eyeless Jack. Current state, in containment. Hal Gordman, the hollowed. Current state, in containment.
Until we get to the monster of the hour.
Jeffrey Woods, Jeff the Killer. Current state, escaped containment.
We see a handheld view of someone's window, and a small glance at what could very easily be Jeff just outside, before a similar video to that of the Macabre Lab's history video begins to play. The message, "Never let them out," is repeated over and over again, as the shadow figure rises from the corner of the screen before cutting to a sort of liability clause within the instructions. By entering our facility, you are held responsible for any inconvenience caused by your foolishness or inability to handle our work environment. Please refer to the instructional guide/handbook for more information. We thank you for taking part in this wonderful facility, and we look forward to seeing how you positively impact our company. Please note that any sign of disobedience may result in immediate experimentation or punishment. We will not tolerate misbehavior during work hours. Before the video ends, we discover that Rowan was arrested for the murder of his friend in the backyard. There's a couple more loose threads that get tied up in this episode. We see what's happened to Rowan after his father's passing, we get more information about working at Macabre Labs, and now we have an idea as to how much control the shadow figure really can have over an individual directly as opposed to operating through media. Not to mention the list of numerous Macabres who are still stuck in containment. Heaven forbid that they ever escape. This all brings us to our final episode at the time of recording. Experiment 5, Candle Cove. Much like the others, Candle Cove was a short story creepypasta written by the one and only Chris Straub, who would go on to create the legendary analog horror series known as Local 58. We get a message from the FE Protective Agency giving us a quick rundown as to what Candle Cove was, as well as provided testimonies from those who remember watching the television show as children. When you mentioned that name, all of it hit me. I had forgot all about it, and how strange it was. I vaguely remember my daughter, Laura, sitting in front of the television with an amused smile on her face. But when I looked at the TV, all I saw was static. Nothing else. It was bizarre, and it freaked me out. When I would ask why she was watching it, she would tell me that it was Candle Cove, and how much she loved that show. I never saw it. Just static. So creepy. I appreciate you reaching out to me, although you are anonymous. I hope you can get to the bottom of this. Holy crap, I forgot all about that. I believe that show ran for a while, but ended around when I started watching it. I was probably about 7 or so at the time. Man, this is a blast from the past. I remember coming home from school and watching it until my dad came home from work at 6. Good times. I was always scared of that skeleton, though. I had nightmares about that thing. I believe the skeleton was the main villain of the show. His name was the Skin Taker. I remember clearly because my older sister made up this stupid thing saying he would come into my room and steal my skin if I went to bed late. I didn't stay up after that. Afterwards, we're greeted with a television screen filled with static before being interrupted by the phrase, "What did he look like?" and a brief flash of what we can only assume to be the shadowed figure. There's also some sort of code at the top of the screen, but it blends in with the white background to the point where I can't quite make out what it says. After the figure disappears, we hear a report, presumably from the FE Protective Agency. The static voice at the end sounds like it's saying, "They begin to rip off," before we are thrust back into the dark room with the static television. We get more narration about those affected by Baronote 7, as well as a blink and you'll miss it visit from our favorite shadow. We see a quick glimpse of the Candle Cove title card through the distortion as the show begins to play.
Hello, laughing stock. That's one whale of a storm. We better run and hide.
Behave! Oh, look! It's Bravery Cave! You have to go inside! 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 You have to go inside!
I'm not brave.
Oh, yes, you are! just don't know it yet. You have to go inside.
I'm scared, Laughingstock. There's something in there.
There sure is, Pirate Percy. Don't you want some treasure?
Sure.
Well then, you have to go inside. Percy, come in. Hello, Percy. Welcome to Candle Cove.
As the Skin Taker informs young Percy that everything will be over soon, Percy begins to scream at him, demanding that the Skin Taker isn't real, and telling him to get out. The Skin Taker responds with,
Neither are you, Percy.
as we begin to see flashes of imagery we've seen throughout the series so far, such as Jeff the Killer, the Shadow Figure, and Rowan Withers. Each one of these images has accompanying text, such as Rowan being labeled as the murderer, Jeff repeating the phrase, "You shouldn't have done that," and, most curious of all, the Shadow Figure having the words, "My son," above its head. I have no clue who this son is that they could be referring to, although it could very well be the child that we see in the next frame with the distorted face and the blacked out eyes, as the phrase, "I miss you," shortly follows. We have one more unlisted video tonight before we wrap things up. CartridgeDiscovery.mp4 mentions that the same agents from the FE Protective Agency, Samson and Hannah, uncovered a video game cartridge from within the old abandoned facility, caked in dust. Although the Protective Agency does end up losing the cartridge, they manage to boot up the game for themselves, revealing the game to be a copy of Sonic 2. Whether this is a reference to the notorious game Sonic.exe or the infamous Needle Mouse Creepypasta is yet to be seen, as this is where our journey ends for now. Before I do a deep dive into this story, I just want to say how absolutely incredible this series is. Stuffy took a really beloved piece of nostalgia within the horror community and brought it into the modern age with the analog horror aesthetic. Yeah, sure, a lot of people are kind of sick of seeing the analog horror medium take over as much as the horror community as it has, but it's storytelling and stylizations like the Macabre experiments that really keep reinvigorating this subgenre and filling it with fresh new ideas, all while the creator is only 16. Now, let's go over what exactly is really happening within the world of the Macabre experiment. While a lot of the story is told to us through the FE Protective Agency and the Macabre Labs videos, there's still plenty that we're unaware of. Who is the Shadow Figure? What was the point of all the human experimentation at Macabre Labs? What even is the FE Protective Agency? Well, let's set up a series of events that we're certain of so far. Ethan Macabre founded Macabre Labs in order to hold highly illegal human experimentation for his own personal reasons. As to what these reasons are, we're unsure of at this time. However, we know that these experiments not only resulted in the deaths of many of the test subjects, but also released microbes into the air that are seemingly able to travel through technology via frequency waves, and are able to infect people just by viewing the screens. Sort of like how Smile Dog and Mouse were able to claim their victims. After his experiments were discovered, Ethan went on the run and disappeared into thin air, and is yet to be found by the authorities or the FE Protective Agency. As the agency begins digging into Macabre Labs, they discover old videos, clues, and begin being attacked by the Macabres that are left within the crumbling walls of the facility. All the while, these microbes continue to affect the population in a variety of ways, making them violent and aggressive to those around them, and it appears that there's no cure. Putting these pieces together, I think it's pretty safe to assume that Ethan Macabre didn't just vanish into thin air in a figurative sense, but also in a literal sense as well. I believe that somehow due to self-experimentation, or as a result of being exposed to the microbes to such a high degree, Ethan became the shadow figure that we've been seeing throughout these episodes. It would explain why he's never been caught, and honestly it explains why he has so much control over the Macabres. As to why he's doing any of this though, it's not really said. The only information we get as to his motives are quote-unquote for his own benefit, without actually being told what those benefits are. Is it medical advancement? To save the life of a loved one? To sustain an underlying bloodlust? We may never know, although my vote's probably on that third one. But regardless, Ethan unleashed this hellish nightmare upon the world, and it seems that his influence over the Macabres isn't going anywhere. What really stuck in my head though, aside from the overall question as to why any of this is happening in the first place, is the question of whether these specific people we've seen mentioned, such as Wyatt and especially Rowan, were targeted for any particular reason. We see that one of the Macabres, or it might even be Ethan at this point if he's the shadow figure, sort of has a bit of vendetta against Rowan, toying with him and causing him to murder his friend in cold blood. But aside from that, all these victims just seem like a random happenstance. I like to think that there's something connecting them all together, but we just don't know what it is yet. The Macabre experiment is taking what I love about analog horror, combining it with some aspects of early internet creepypastas, and finding new and interesting ways to weave these seemingly standalone stories into one cohesive narrative that I, for one, am really enjoying. The fact that all of these episodes came out before the creator had even finished high school is a testament to their creative abilities, and I, for one, am excited to see what horrors await us in the future, and will eagerly be watching for the next installment of this absolute gem of a series. And this is where we get to the harder part of this video to make. This is more or less just an update on my personal life, where I've been, what's going on. If you guys are here for the theories and the scares and all that stuff, that part of the video is over. This is more or less just an update. I have not been well mentally. I have been very overwhelmed lately, and I just need to kind of get a couple things off my chest, because I went onto my YouTube stuff the other day, just checking notifications and all that good stuff, and I realized that the channel has had its first birthday as of February 9th. And instead of being a moment of excitement of, oh wow, I've been doing this for a year, it was a somber moment of, I didn't even realize that it had been a year. My life has just been so chaotic, I didn't even realize that, February was right around the corner. But I think you'll all be happy to know that I am doing better. I have been adjusting to becoming a father of 3, which includes a lot of late nights, and I think I'm improving, and I'm about to go on a vacation that will severely boost my mental health. It's going to be for about a week, and it'll be really good for me, I think. And when I get back, I start a new job, which will be another stress off my shoulders, because I was unemployed for a bit. But, it'll probably be at least another month or so until the next video comes out. I found a series yesterday that I really want to talk about. It just seems so goofy and fun and so over the top scary that I think you guys will enjoy it. But I just wanted to give a quick update as to how I've been, where I've been, and I promise that this second year of Astronaut will not be as sporadic or as I'll say sparse as the first year was. This is one of my favorite hobbies that I have. This is literally how I spend all of my free time. Take that as you will, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, up to you. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm not gone, I haven't forgotten, and I am hard at work on both myself and on Astronaut. So, that's about it from me. I've been Astronaut. Until next time, I'll see you around.